Just brainstorming and getting different perspectives. I would have never thought of that.
Like tripping on my words, trying to tell my story.
The most interested person in the room is the most interesting person in the room.
Oh my gosh, this is amazing.
I feel like a lot of people would identify with like the raw emotions of that.
And it intimidates me a lot.
We are here today to try and figure out how can we better introduce ourselves? How can we integrate our why and our story and share it in the best way possible? I literally just hopped off this meeting I had, like tripping on my words, trying to tell my story and wishing I'd already done this with you guys so I could have practiced it a little bit. But yeah, excited to tackle it. So I just want to go around and share some intros and kind of get to know each other.
My name is Cedric Clyburn, computer science student at NC State University, currently interning at a place called Red Hat. My motivation essentially for waking up every day is just to create content. Something difficult I'm dealing with the past few months would probably be I've wanted to kind of reach out to more mentors, but I don't really know how to do it. That first step is really what is challenging me right now.
My name's Parker. I'm a junior at NC State studying marketing. Over the past few months, I got to start a podcast about leadership and personal development. One thing that I've realized that I really thrive off of is accountability when I'm setting goals. One thing that I would say I really value and appreciate. We did one challenge team that was about candid feedback, not having just kind of a surface level relationship really helped me to deepen that appreciation for people.
I'm Griffin, recent NC State graduate from computer electrical engineering. Since graduation, I've been working on Proteo Shakes, which is a company that aims to demystify sport supplements with a vending machine that provides supplement suggestions and then blends together multiple powders rather than having just bottled shakes inside of it. I'm most passionate about making experiences. So when I came across this market need where I didn't know anything about supplements, I was like, okay, well, let's see how I can make this experience better for everyone. But then the thing I've been struggling or dealing with, trying to really sell my idea, definitely have the iterative process of let's make this idea better, but actually talking to people is my difficult side, or at least talking to people that I haven't spoken with yet or aren't already interested, working on that.
My name is Mohit Sapre. I'm from India. I live in Pune and I just want to live my life to the fullest. One of my bucket list, if you would, is starting my own podcast, and that's why I'm currently helping Parker with his podcast. And something that has annoyed me is being stuck in a loop in life. In that loop, I do the same thing each and every day, and I'm trying to do something new which can get me out of that.
Hey guys, I'm Laura. I'm a junior at Belmont University studying social work and Christian leadership. I just want to work with people and help improve people's lives. I'm really interested in child welfare and family services. Something that I've been struggling with this past year is I've been dealing with a lot of rejection, partially because of COVID and partially just because people are like that. Big lesson for me about how to deal with rejection on a constant scale, because it's not something that I'm used to.
My name is David Daniel. I'm based out of Lagos, Nigeria. I am studying a business education right here in University of Lagos, and I am the host of the Leadership Journey podcast, developing leaders, creating a community for leaders to become better, to serve better, to love better, and to lead better. And the thing I've been battling with is being able to communicate with people one-on-one.
So I'm Joseph, 18, live in Brooklyn, New York. Graduated high school last March, and I'm currently working on developing my business to make custom electric guitars and basses. But I would also like to start an in-person guitar making school and bring back my profession into the mainstream. Currently, what I'm struggling with is procrastination and just really staying on track with whatever I'm trying to accomplish.
Thank you everybody so much for sharing. What are some ideas for goals we could set?
We've been working on intros for when we get into meetings with somebody about Proteo Shake. And we came up with this 2-minute long thing, and then we spoke with someone yesterday and he was like, yeah, nobody's going to listen for 2 minutes. Really boil it down into 3 sentences, then get the conversation started rather than pitching it.
I'm thinking maybe finding ways to tell good and compelling stories through an intro. Like it's really tough, especially virtually, to do that. So finding out ways to connect with someone through some shared experience or something deeper like that.
And what I usually would do is try to make a connection with that other person by asking questions. The best way that you can make friends is ask questions.
What makes up a good intro?
I've thought about it before. I was like, hey, what is my purpose when I'm talking to most people? Getting clear on the purpose behind it will lead us to what actually needs to be a part of the intro.
Trying to find a common ground in which to connect with that person. If you meet in person at an event, speak on something that happened while you guys were in that event.
Yeah, David, I love that idea, because originally when I'm thinking a shared experience, I'm thinking like some big high level thing, like we're in the same field or something. but you're just talking about, no, just like shared experience, just like that day or just in that room or that space.
I don't know where I heard this, but the most interested person in the room is the most interesting person in the room.
Whoever's asking the most questions, like whoever's the most interested in the other person is actually the most interesting, because people want to talk to them. They want to talk about themselves.
That strikes up a conversation.
It sounds like basically we're creating two goals. One is, okay, I want a 3-sentence pitch, but then there's this second goal that we're creating, which is how can I actually connect with someone in an intro? That's why I love this, because just brainstorming and getting different perspectives, it's like, I would have never thought of that.
For me, it's a little bit more of getting to the core of it, maybe like 3 core pillars of my intro around that. Maybe the first pillar is like, just introducing and like quick little thing that will break the ice a little bit. Then the second thing is like a little bit more about me. And then maybe the third thing is like ending it with something that kind of brings it back around and connects it with them. What do you guys think we could do in terms of actual action we could take to knock down some of these goals?
We should have one like written down script, not that you necessarily go off of, but it's always a backup to make you more confident for when you're doing that.
For me, I need to identify the elements, like the most important things that I want to include. Then I need to narrow it down either to a script or a few bullet points. Then I need to practice it. Kind of those 3 steps are the main ones.
Maybe another thing I'll pull out is like doing some research on different storytelling and introduction frameworks.
Define for yourself who you want to focus your intros on, and then come up with the biggest points that each one of those would care about.
And then maybe after presenting it to the group, share with the group like, hey, these are the 3 things I was trying to get across. Did I get them across? Get quick feedback. People are giving you feedback on it like, hey, this is how I perceived it. Like, this is what I got out of that intro just now. And then you share with them, well, hey, this is actually what I was trying to get across, and figure out where the gap is.
That sounds like a good exercise.
Love that idea.
An individual effort might be that what would you like to know about the person who you're buying from?
I'm still trying to think about who I need to introduce myself to, like process that kind of stuff. How to have an intro that isn't too formal and comes across naturally. I'm trying to go to grad school, so maybe it's like an academic setting. So the applications we have to write a personal statement about who you are and why you are the way that you are. And it intimidates me a lot. Introducing myself to people is easy, but it's figuring out how to actually communicate things that I need to communicate in an effective way. It's like what I want to get across, how to be perceived, rather than like how to actually structure the introduction.
Here's one thought that I had that's worked for some of the other ones we've done, kind of getting feedback. So like, I know your roommates are close with you, having a quick conversation over dinner or something and just saying like, hey, like, how do you perceive me? Then it's not just like, oh, what do I want to be most important? It's also like input from others.
Yeah, I'm down to do that. I like that.
I was talking with Gabe, and he was teaching us how to go about like communicating the value of something we're doing. He said like, hey, like, don't you think it would be so much more impactful if you were able to tell it as a story and add even like add in a character to it, or find a way to like get the person on the other end to put themselves in the shoes. They kind of like, we use the word imagine a lot. Like, imagine you're here. I wanted to show this to you. It's something really cool that I found last year that's helped me a lot. It's like, hey, okay, so there's this undeniable change that's happening with consumer behavior. There's going to be winners and losers. Here's why I think we're going to become one of the winners in this change.
My goal is to introduce my company more so than myself. Basically, the context is I'm in a gym and I have like a shake stand. Hello, I'm Griffin. I'd like to get you the right pre or post workout shake today. After they order, they'll probably ask like who we are. So, I'm developing a machine that should blend shakes, much like I'm doing right now, though hopefully quicker, like the Coke Freestyle machine for protein shakes. Can I ask you why you chose the custom shake over the bottled?
One thing I really liked about what you did is it's like the Freestyle Coke machine, but for shakes. That like instantly in my mind was like, oh, okay, yeah, totally got it.
I love that.
You might want to say like, hey, it's like that, but then also this, and this. When you and I first connected, the reason why I really enjoyed what you're doing is because I had this really emotional response with your problem statement you shared with me about like, hey, supplements are confusing. I feel like a lot of people would identify with like the raw emotions of that. So if you could find a way to like weave that into your questioning with people, like, hey, like when you think of the word supplements, like what are the emotions that run through your head? Hopefully some of that's helpful to you.
All right. So mine, hey, like my name's Parker Mays. I'm a junior in marketing at NC State. 6 months ago, I started a podcast all about leadership and personal development. Something that I really struggled with when I was in high school and early college was knowing where to go to start building my network. And so through Taking a Breath, something I've been really passionate about is how to not only grow personally, but also help the people around me to grow. Don't know if the school/education side of it is something that I want to include.
People give feedback. First thing you want to say is like what drives you, or like say your why. It's kind of like one of those forms of interaction that has somewhat of a script that people might be expecting. It gives some good context, but also, I don't know, maybe it's something you put into the center of your thing.
It's all built on, all right, I'm a student, and that's why so maybe I could actually communicate that more clearly, like, hey, I'm a student, but also I really wanted to learn outside of the classroom or something and transition that more smoothly.
Parker, I've got an idea for you that might actually bridge those things perfectly. Can you maybe read that second sentence again? You said like, hey, I'm Parker, I'm a junior. And then the second sentence.
Over the past few months, I've been working on a podcast called Taking a Breath about leadership and personal development.
And then the next sentence after that is the one where you get into the problem that you were facing. It's like, hey, if you can introduce the problem first, then go into like, then what you did. Otherwise, it felt like, oh, I'm doing this podcast, but like now let me rewind and tell you why. You know what I mean? If you experimented with telling the story in chronological order, you might actually be able to say like, hey, I'm Parker Mays, I'm a junior. Being in college, I went through some of these problems. And then that led to me wanting to start a podcast. It's always about exposition, conflict, and then resolution. And if you jump to the resolution, then it kind of spoils the story.
If you could find a way to just like give us where were you before starting the podcast in just a brief way, we like know what Parker does, but what inspired Parker to did what he's doing, and where is Parker going to?
I love that.
Hey Parker, I got one more thought for you. When I started to change my intro to go back further, for me, it's, I grew up in this whole family of entrepreneurs, or, growing up, like my parents got divorced at a young age. And so I was always like caught in the middle, wanting to see the people around me be successful. That sort of thing, like really narrows that emotional distance between you and other people. I also just think that it sets you apart so much, because like the average person goes to college, but if you can really personalize it and be like, here's like a little bit more about me personally, a little bit more vulnerability there. It was only by wanting that to be a part of my intro that I actually thought through and then realized like, oh wait, there's all these childhood influences that I have that like really control a lot of what I do now.
I like that. Yeah.
I think I would just go with the introduction. Hello, my name is David Daniel. I'm a student at the University of Lagos, and I've been studying about leadership, wanting to know more about leadership. A few months ago, I started a podcast, which is the Leadership Journey podcast. I believe everyone is a leader. We all just need that community that would help us become better, that would help us sharpen our potential. I hope to provide products and services that would help leaders to achieve more than what they think they can achieve in their leadership career and life.
I like that you did kind of like the past, present, future. You mentioned like, I hope to provide products and services. If someone caught that last sentence and was like, hey, like what types of things are you looking at? Would you already know like how to start talking about that? Or would you just kind of be like, no, like it's just kind of like an aspiration that I have?
This idea of saying like, I believe in a world where blank, or I'm trying to work to get us to a world where blank, helps it feel very much mission-driven person, very like, long-term thinking person, rather than just sharing where you are now. It's also like, hey, this is what I'm building towards, which I think is a valuable component.
If someone followed up on that, are those things that you would still build on concretely?
I think there might be a little bit of a limiting belief here where you're feeling like you have to have all the answers worked out for the future. It's best to just be vulnerable and just share like, hey, I don't know exactly where it's going. Part of the reason why I'm talking to you today.
I'm listening to it, and it's like you talked about your education and then a lot of like stuff about leadership. It's a bit less tangible. Like a lot of people are learning leadership, but going out and making the podcast to learn it yourself shows that you're going above and beyond to get there. Bringing that into like the second sentence would really strengthen up that point.
Do we have any volunteers to get started?
One of my goals for last week was to talk to my roommate a little bit, talk to some of my friends, and just kind of figure out what my why is, because that was something that like there's a lot of focus on, and I didn't really feel like I knew in a good way how to put that into words. And so I did a lot of also journaling, because that's something that I do to process and just to think through like, what do I care about? What do I want to do? I wrote a one sentence intro that I can use to like start a conversation with people. My mission statement was, I want to give people the tools they need to heal themselves, to end cycles of generational family trauma, and to help strengthen communities by protecting children from childhood trauma before it ever happens. So my intro was just, hi, I'm Laura Balin, and I'm an aspiring social worker looking to get into child and family services. It's not that flashy or anything, but it's straightforward and it gets to the point, and I think it's perfectly fine for like my grad school interviews and stuff like that.
I think something that would be really cool if you added on, hey, this is why I'm interested in this, or, because you mentioned like I'm aspiring social worker and that type of thing. But then if you say, add that sentence that says, this is why I'm really passionate about it. And it could kind of use some of that mission statement. I love what you did with the mission statement, because that's kind of this really good overarching goal.
Is there something in your life that you can kind of point to as like the reason why you have that mission now?
Everyone in my family, my personal life, there's a lot of poverty and a lot of trauma in my family that's affected the way that we function now. Definitely the reason that I want to go into child and family services. I would just have to figure out how to say that without getting like super vulnerable in front of people I just met.
Instantly, if somebody introduced themselves and said they like have that background, that's why they're doing it, I'm instantly like, wow, this person is like really getting after it. So something to consider for you. Hopefully it's helpful.
I like that because it's pretty simple and it's very personal. Like they're getting to know you. It feels like they really know who you are already.
One thing I found is that it's helpful to kind of like only make statements about yourself, not like pointing fingers at other people in your family, just making sure that like, hey, this happened. This is the impact that it had on me, or this is how I felt about it. And then this is what happened as a result.
That's actually really good. I really love that, focusing on that, because a lot of it is like generational family cycles, but then talking about like I was affected by that in this way makes it just stronger.
I have just like a simple 3-sentence thing that I've been using a lot on LinkedIn. So it's, hey, my name's Cedric. I'm a computer science student at NC State, really passionate about large scale data and AI. Since building a computer since when I was 11, continue down that line working with leading software companies like IBM and Red Hat. My goal is really to use technology to make people's lives easier, and love connecting with people to learn how to make that happen. So simple and sweet, 3 lines. I do one intro and then one kind of story background and then one action statement.
Only piece is kind of like I don't want to say like vulnerability piece, but just like a personal connection, probably too, just because like I'm not in the comp sci side of things.
Coming from computer engineering, it's kind of the typical story.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe it's true because it's a really powerful one for people that have actually gone through it. It could be more conversational, I guess.
If the target person who you're reaching out to is going to have that shared common experience, like, oh, I actually, came from that same background, then actually there is that personal connection.
It sounds like you got quite a bit of experience working with IBM and Red Hat. Like, say something that made you connected with each of those jobs, or how you feel those pushed you without getting like too resume like. If you bridge the gap saying how you kept up with it, that shows that your passion started there and that you kept building it.
When it comes to intros, you want to keep them as simple as possible. And for me, the chronological stuff has always just made the most sense. And so that's my other big piece of feedback for you, is just consider the order here. If you can show that you almost like realized your mission early on, almost by accident, and then that helped you to like latch on and be like, wow, like this is my purpose. And then you could mention like one way I'm trying to apply this, or like one action I'm taking, or one avenue I'm exploring. The last line, like love connecting with people to learn how to make that happen. I share with people like, hey, here's my mission, and here's something I'm doing to take the first step. Then people are way more likely to be like, oh, wow, they're already on their way. Let me just help them out along the way.
I absolutely agree with that. People are so much more likely to help you if they know it's not going to be a huge commitment, especially nowadays when everyone's so busy.
Love to hear from you guys and just have a minute to reflect big picture on this whole experience.
Yeah, it's been pretty good. Basically needed to reimagine how I was doing this. But I think the one that I came out with feels a lot more like personal.
It's been a really cool experience with social work. I had a little bit of a different perspective, so it was cool to hear from people who are more like on the entrepreneurial side of things. Social work is just something I've been kind of naturally good at since I started, and so I had never really stopped to think about why I want to do what I want to do and how to communicate that to others in an impactful and tangible way.
Something that I didn't think of before going through this experience was definitely like being in software. Like no one really tries, I guess, to really do a strong, impactful intro. Bringing that to kind of my field will definitely help me like be an outlier.
Enjoyed the experience of seeing how this whole thing worked. Very interesting to see how you put it together and the feedback of working together. So I definitely want to do this again.
It has been really cool hanging out with you guys. I have definitely had a chance to look back at a lot of the ways that I've introduced myself in the past and just be a lot more intentional about it. So I really appreciate you guys helping me to get there. We've got all sorts of exciting topics coming up. We've got goal setting and accountability. We've got financial basics. I really appreciate you guys being a part of the journey.